there, knife people. Hello, lady and gentlemen. Today we are going to talk about
the new Mini Claymore OTF from Benchmade knives.
So as you can see, every major retailer already published a video about this knife. And as far as how it flicks and sits in your hand, there's a ton of videos about this knife already after just 1 week. So why should you watch this video? I'll tell you why. Because I am not affiliated with knife retailers, Benchmade, any other knife making company, and I will never try to sell you a knife. I just don't promote knives for sale on my channel. I simply buy them with my own money, review them, and share my findings with you. And this came out just last week, or the week of the National Knife Day. Anyway, it has a basic deep pocket clip that is made an appearance on the full-size Claymore OTF, and it's a beautiful knife. Again, they nailed the blade to handle length ratio here, I believe. The center of gravity is a little bit farther back, so that actually doesn't detriment manipulating the knife. Very easy. This one is made out of CPM D2 steel, and I will never get tired of talking about this steel because I think that it's one of the best powder metallurgy steels on the market today. Crucible, who makes it. It's unfortunate they didn't remarket it under a different name. Call it Supercod or Magna Super or you know, Tool Galore. I don't know. Come up with some name other than D2, because most people out there in the knife community that are not steel aficionados, they don't know that this steel is 300% tougher than the regular D2. So it basically eliminates any concerns that you would have with a regular D2 steel. And the only thing that sets it apart from super steels like Magna Cut, S45 and so forth is its lack of supreme corrosion resistance, and yet it's not completely corrosion prone either. The action straight out of the box, I haven't lubed or messed with this knife. The action, I would say, is medium stiffness. Let's put it this way, it's not as smooth as Kershaw live wire, but it's softer than any Microtech. I like the shape of the handle. I like that it is fully symmetrical as opposed to most other OTFs. And what else is symmetrical is how blade sits in the handle. And that's a big shtick on Benchmade FRN style plastic handle knives. They figured out the way to make it centered and give you this full knife eye aesthetic as opposed to trade-off that all other OTFs have. And of course that came at a cost. I think these are nightmarish to maintain if you have to take it apart, and if you're not a sort of knife mechanic or knife hobbyist that likes disassembling the knives, you will have to eventually take advantage of Benchmade's lifetime warranty and send it in for maintenance at some point. And of course it comes with a Life Sharp service, which means you can send it to Benchmade at any time and they will resharpen it for you absolutely free. You only have to pay for the shipping to them. This one is the first production knife. I usually don't subject these knives, first production knives, to tests because I think they're somewhat collectible, not hugely collectible, but somewhat more collectible than a run-of-the-mill knife without this marking. That means it was made within the first 1,000. I'm not sure, I think 500 full-size Claymore OTFs, which I have a first production one, and I think 500 of Mini. And I honestly like the Mini better. And now I'm just for you, because it's a knife day, let's go. My regular tree of doom that I do these tests on was unavailable today. So I'm doing it on this waterlogged tree trunk that's been sitting here near the tidal river for a while, and I strike it 25 times and then I pry it left to right and right to left, about 15-20 degrees to each side, before I pull it out to test the tip to see if it'll break off. And usually by now, that's 20, if the tip was going to break off, it would have. The correct way to extract is this way, obviously. Let's see. Oh well, I don't know if you can see if camera focuses enough, but right here it had a needle point and it broke off. I am perfectly fine with that because I don't think needle point is an absolute must-have. There should be a tiny little radius here which will be easy to introduce. Literally, it was just a burr that felt like a needle point that broke off, and after stropping, this is what it looks like. And how it performs, I'll show you in a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, this is what the rest of the edge looks like. I would say it's a typical Benchmade, and that is not a compliment. And another test I often do with the OTFs is water. You know, will it work underwater? Because it's a tactical knife. That's a full open. That's a close. That's an open, close, not open. But Benchmade, since they released the Shootout, which could not pass any of these tests, it would basically not deploy in the first or in the second attempt. I think they kind of fixed it. They took some pages from the book that Kershaw Livewire wrote, and I'm gonna call it a decent knife. And if you wonder why I do these things, I just like how much it pisses off some other knife reviewers when I do this kind of stuff, because they can't deal with me not being affiliated and not being afraid to expose knives' shortcomings. So no amount of verbiage or verbal diarrhea saying, how are you not supposed to use the knives like that? No amount of verbal diarrhea will sway me from doing this stuff. I love it. Somebody's having fun. It's like perfect 72 degrees out. Anyway, yeah, still expelling water. That's how a functional knife should function. The knife spent the night in a bag of rice. How undignifying. And while I'm cooking my breakfast, you can hear it in the background, I'm going to pull it out and check the function. The interior of the knife should be bone dry, because that's what rice will do. And even though the knife seems to be in a good order, I will still disassemble it because I have a suspicion there might be rust inside. Sometimes I hate to be right. Here's the rust. And it's probably because all kinds of dissimilar metals come together around the blade and react with each other galvanically. I have a video about this type of stuff. Check out my saltwater test videos. If you ever watched my hardness test videos, you know how I operate. Watch them if you don't. I will not justify the method in this video or explain how I do it or why I think this leap tester gives me accurate results. I'm just going to do a quick test before I reassemble the rest of the knife. This is CPM D2. I will provide the ideal range for it. Let's see how Benchmade performed. I'm striking the tang of the blade 5 times, and if I encounter an outlier, meaning way low or way high result, like this one, way too high, I am going to have to throw it out from the average calculations. And because I'm striking without removing the coating, I will have to add 1 whole point HRC to the result. This result surprised me a little because Benchmade advertises 60 to 62 HRC for this knife. So I'm going to double check the calibration of my device. So I'm going to strike that block, which is calibrated to 58.7 HRC, and see if I'm above, below, or what. So removing the outlier gives me 57.9 plus 0.4 correction 58.3 plus 1 solid point 59.3 is my final answer. And this is below what Benchmade advertises. So I'm going to call out the range between 58 and 60 HRC. To determine and provide you the ideal range for CPM D2, I had to consult with the Crucible Industries website. And on their website, they show only one data sheet and it's called D2, but I'm pretty sure they mean CPM D2 because the toughness of the regular D2 based on other tables that I looked at is much lower. So with this caveat, any heat treatment of D2 below 58 is not recommended because the steel is brittle, probably due to retained austenite. So according to the manufacturer, the ideal range looks to be between 58 and 61 HRC or so, which is where you get 21 to 23 foot-pound toughness. And then once you get past 63 HRC, the toughness drops pretty rapidly. And so at 62 HRC, it's already at 17 foot-pounds. On my channel, I look at knives as mechanical systems, and the blade hardness is just one parameter that describes the system. So for a knife that is designed to inflict puncture wounds and penetrate deeply, which potentially leads to striking harder materials, blade toughness is a more critical parameter than the edge retention. So the out-the-side claymore, which is designed mostly for slicing, is ideal candidate for 60 to 63 HRC range, while this OTF, I believe, is in its ideal range for the purpose. So I applaud Benchmade engineers that pick the hardness range that corresponds to the functionality of the knife. As far as the intended user of the knife is concerned, they will see no difference whether it's at 58 or at 61.5 HRC. This here is a sneak preview into full disassembly reassembly video that I am considering publishing. Only considering for now, even though I completely disassembled it down to the last piece and reassembled it. But I am not sure it would be responsible of me to publish such video because this was hands down the most complicated reassembly of any OTF that I ever touched. I know what you're seeing on the screen is no different from reassembling any, say, Microtech or Livewire by Kershaw. But it actually is. Because of how this knife is constructed, in order to center the blade between the front and back scales. Well, if this video gets, say, 1,000 views, I will consider publishing disassembly reassembly because that would indicate that people are actually interested in buying this knife. Let me know in the comments what are your thoughts on that topic. Claymore OTFs are brand new for 2024, and there's some misinformation out there coming from the sources you wouldn't expect. So here's time for some corrections. So what motivated this segment? Blade HQ channel has more than 750,000 subscribers, so their words matter. Please pay close attention.
This is the Benchmade Claymore OTF with the mini version. So we have a CPM D2 blade and a very nice injection molded FRN handle with steel reinforcements in the linings.
Let me assure you, there are no steel reinforcements in the handles. There are no liners. There's a spring housing assembly, which is a very thin sheet metal stamping, and a 1mm thick blade traverse frame. The only reinforcements in the handle are molded out of FRN.
So it's nice and strong, sort of built a lot like the Shootout, except this one has the front actuation scale and that CPM D2 blade. This sort of seems like the logical progression from the Infidel series, which is extremely popular.
Actually, other than the looks, it has almost nothing in common with the Infidel. It is, however, very, very similar in construction and design to the Shootout.
Well, lately they've been discontinuing a lot of the Infidel line, but this one is brand new. And it feels sort of the same purpose as the Infidel, but it is probably a third the weight with equivalent strength and equivalent materials.
Actually, according to Blade HQ's own website, there is less than half an ounce difference between Mini Claymore and Mini Infidel. And while Benchmade does periodically turn the spigot of Infidel production down, they're widely available. Wait, what? On sale for $340 at Shields? CPM D2 is not the same as original D2 or S30V on the Infidel, so materials are not equivalent. As to the strength of the knives, without testing them in a lab, I wouldn't make this declaration.
And they just fill out the hand just right. Honestly, if I were going to everyday carry a Benchmade OTF, I think it would be this one. I think I prefer this one to the Shootout. That's just my opinion, though. Your mileage may vary.
First of all, I object. This is DCA's line from Knife Center. And secondly, on a more serious note, while the automatic knives are now legal in most states for carry, the double-edged daggers are not. Besides, and thirdly, having a second edge right next to the handle limits the uses of your knife. What if you need to do a long push cut and accidentally forget and place your finger on that edge? Of course, your kink is your kink. There's no accounting for taste, and your mileage may differ. What I do want to show you is how this knife compares to other Benchmade OTFs. This is the full-size Claymore OTF. Here's the famous Infidel, full size. And here's the Mini Infidel, near identical in size. And next we'll check out the Autocrat. Of course, this is a spine switch OTF. And since we're in that territory, let's look at Livewire by Kershaw. And believe it or not, even being a Benchmade collector, I recommend this one above all the knives you've seen today on this bench, including this Microtech Cypher 2, which is literally twice as expensive as a Livewire. And here's Microtech Ultratech. Hey, remember now distant 2022 when the frag pattern was all the rage? What happened to it now? I would definitely recommend Mini Claymore over this one, mostly because of all the DNA I just left. It just took my skin off on the switch. Benchmade has been trying to sort of produce and sell an EDC geared OTF for years now. And somehow they just don't take hold. Time after time, a knife comes out, and then it kind of lingers until it goes on sale and people buy it because it's a Benchmade, it's on sale. So they don't have like a hit. As opposed to Kershaw, who on the first try, they released this Livewire, and that's the first one I bought. I have a couple now. They nailed it. And the reason I'm bringing that up is there's certain features that EDC versus purely tactical, less suitable for EDC OTF, are right here in front of your eyes. So for starters, an EDC knife should have a way to press down with your finger because a lot of your tasks are package opening, and that's the preferred grip for that. This way you can control how deep you cut into the pack. You will cut to where your finger is, right? So you will not puncture something in. With a double-edged dagger like this one, it's sharpened. By double edge, I mean it's sharpened on both sides. You cannot do it. As soon as you put any pressure on this edge, you will cut your fingers. That sort of limits the uses of this knife to more or less tactical. Another feature of this knife is it has 4 primary bevels. By this I mean these slopes here, they're called primary bevels, and there's 4 of them, 2 to each side of the knife. And then it has 2 edges or 2 secondary bevels. This geometry in general called dagger with chisel grind because the secondary bevel is only on one side. That means this knife is not great for making long straight cuts on paper, for example, leather, etc. Reason is it's asymmetrical, so when you're pushing the knife through, it will deviate away from the edge, so to speak. So it's like it will try to turn kind of like a canoe in the water. What it's designed to do is this. And what this is the retired bulletproof Kevlar vest. I deliberately struck it with my weaker left hand, and what's inside is this pretty dense insulation foam, as expected, to the hilt. We're going to say about 3/4 of an inch of the blade protruding. Of course, everyone has different definition of EDC, so if you carry a sidearm on a daily basis, that could definitely be a backup to it, so it becomes your EDC. Let's sum it all up. If you need a good tough knife to supplement your EDC self-defense carry, your primary arm, that's a great knife. If you need an outdoors knife, it's a decent knife as well, as long as you don't try to woodwork with it or get it wet. This opens the door to talk about the state of the knife industry in general and Benchmade in particular. There are 3 trends that the industry is trying to instill in us in the last 2 years. 3 major pushes, sales pitches, promotions, affiliation offers, etc. They're trying to push 3 things. 1, automatic knives for EDC. 2, pocket fixed blades. And 3, fancy overpriced utility tools with replaceable blades. I think that's where they think the money is, in those 3 categories. Which brings me to the topic of my upcoming video in the near future. Benchmade new entry into the pocket fixed blade EDC knife called the Dacian. Here it is. And in that video, I will expand on my thoughts about the utility of carrying a fixed blade, which I do sometimes. So while the dark forces of knife salesmanship are trying to squeeze the last dispensable dollar of your income on stuff that you may or may not need, how do you counter it? By watching channels that give you independent, unaffiliated, unencumbered, and unbiased opinion about the stuff you're thinking about buying. Hopefully that helps. Shit, that was Dave's line too. Benchmade Dacian. Good luck. Pocket EDC fixed blade. I already don't like it.